The sun was setting behind the tall glass windows of Adam Khan's mansion, its golden rays painting the sky, but inside the house, everything felt cold. Adam, a young and successful millionaire CEO, sat alone at the head of a long, polished dining table. In front of him were two untouched plates of food. The rich, warm smell of chicken soup filled the grand room, a scent that once meant family and comfort, but now no one touched it. Upstairs, in a room filled with toys they no longer played with, his twin daughters, Lina and Lara, were silent, hidden, and deeply scared. It had been almost 2 weeks since they had eaten a proper meal. 13 long days of refusing every dish, no matter how lovingly prepared. 13 days of shutting themselves away from the world, from the sunlight, from him. 13 days of crying softly into their pillows when they thought no one could hear. No doctor could find a physical cause. No renowned child therapist could break through their silence. No world-class chef could tempt them with their favorite foods. The entire mansion, once filled with the echoes of their laughter and the pitter-patter of their tiny feet, had fallen into a heavy, suffocating quiet. The sound of silence was the loudest, most painful thing Adam had ever heard. His heart felt like it was breaking, splintering a little more with each passing day. He looked at the untouched soup, the steam slowly disappearing, just like his hope. He let out a deep, weary sigh. His loyal assistant, Mr. Billow, stood quietly a few feet away, his presence a constant, respectful shadow. "Sir," Billow said, his voice soft, careful not to break the fragile quiet. "The girls, they didn't eat even a bite today. Shall I call the doctor again?" Adam slowly shook his head, not taking his eyes off the cold, uneaten food. His voice was low, rough with exhaustion and unshed tears. "Doctors can't fix a broken heart." Billow pushed himself up from the chair, the simple movement feeling like a monumental effort. He walked slowly toward the grand staircase, each footstep heavy with worry, echoing the weight in his soul. He made his way to his daughter's room and gently, ever so gently, pushed the door open. Inside, the room was dim. The twins were huddled together on the floor, wrapped in a single, thick blanket, even though the evening wasn't cold. Lina clutched a small, worn teddy bear to her chest, its button eyes staring blankly ahead. Lara's gaze was fixed on the floor, her own eyes just as empty. When they heard their father enter, they both flinched and quickly wiped their tears, trying to hide their sadness from him. Adam's heart clenched. He knelt down beside them, bringing himself to their level. "Please, my loves," he whispered, his voice pleading. "Just eat a little. Papa is so worried." The twins didn't speak. They hadn't spoken to him properly in weeks, their words lost in a sea of grief. But Adam had learned to read their silence, to understand the language of their pain. Lina, the bolder of the two, softly touched his hand, her tiny fingers barely grazing his skin before she pulled away, almost as if she were afraid. And then, Adam heard it. A sound so quiet, he almost missed it. A tiny whisper, broken and shaky. It was Lara's voice. "Papa!" she said, her voice trembling. "You won't leave us too, right?" Adam froze. The word struck him like a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. It felt as if someone had punched him straight in the heart. That was it. That was the core of their fear, the root of all this suffering. He pulled the girls close, wrapping them in a tight, desperate hug. "No," he said, his own voice cracking with emotion. "Never. I will never, ever leave you." The dam broke. The twins burst into tears, crying into his shirt, releasing weeks of pent-up fear and sorrow. This was why they refused to eat. This was why they hid themselves away. They were terrified of losing him, their rock, their only parent left, the same way they had lost their mother. After what felt like an eternity, their sobs subsided into quiet hiccups. He tucked them into their beds, promising to stay until they fell asleep. Once they were breathing softly, lost in a fragile peace, Adam stepped out of the room and leaned against the cool wall in the hallway. He closed his eyes, fighting to hold back his own tears. He had everything a man could want: money, power, a business empire, but none of it mattered. His wealth was useless. He couldn't fix the one thing in the world that mattered most: his own daughters' broken hearts. Downstairs, his secretary approached him cautiously. "Sir," she said, her tone gentle, "I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's something I wanted to tell you. We received another application today for the nanny position." Adam didn't respond at first. He just stared at the intricate patterns on the marble floor, his mind replaying his daughter's terrified words. He'd been through countless nannies, all highly qualified, all failing to connect with the girls. "She's very different from the others," the secretary continued, sensing his hesitation. "She doesn't have a long list of rich employers or fancy credentials, but something about her application feels warm, real." Adam finally looked up, a flicker of something he hadn't felt in weeks stirring within him. "Her name?" he asked quietly. "Maya," she replied. Maya, Ali. Adam nodded slowly, considering it. At this point, he didn't care about qualifications or experience. He only cared about finding anyone who could reach the hearts of his daughters, who could see past their silence and understand their pain. He walked into his home office and sat down behind the large, imposing wooden desk. He picked up Maya's application. It was simple. There was no fancy resume, no long list of degrees or accomplishments. There was just a simple, handwritten note attached to the form. It read, "I love children. I understand pain. And I don't give up." Something about those words, so simple yet so powerful, made Adam pause. He closed his eyes for a moment, a silent prayer forming in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, this was the person who could bring light back into his home, into his daughters' lives. He opened his eyes, his decision made. His voice was firm, clear, for the first time in days. "Call her. Tell her to come tomorrow morning." As his assistant left the room to make the call, Adam turned his chair to look out the window at the dark, starless sky. He whispered to the night, to the universe, to his late wife, "Please, let this work." And somewhere far away, in a small, humble apartment across the city, a young woman named Maya packed her small bag, a hopeful smile on her face. She had no... The next morning, a soft sense of hope filled the mansion, even though no one dared to speak it aloud. Maya Ali stood outside the tall black gates, a small bag in one hand, her CV in the other. Dressed in simple clothes with her hair in a neat ponytail, she looked nervous, but a gentle warmth shone in her eyes. After a quick call from the guard, the gates opened, and she was allowed inside. As she walked through the immense garden, Maya whispered to herself, "Be calm. You can do this." When she stepped into the mansion, she saw Adam standing near the grand staircase. His face was tired, but still held a look of strength. Maya greeted him softly. "Good morning, sir." Adam nodded. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." He studied her for a moment. She was nothing like the fancy nannies he'd hired before. Her clothes were plain, her shoes worn, but her eyes, they held a genuine kindness. "Before we begin," Adam said, his voice serious, "I need you to know something." Maya listened intently. "My daughters. They haven't eaten properly in almost 2 weeks. They don't talk. They're easily scared. And they don't trust anyone new." Maya felt her heart ached for them. "I understand," she said softly. Adam looked surprised. "Most people don't." "I'm not most people," she replied gently. For a moment, Adam was speechless. There was a quiet strength about this girl, simple yet profound. He led her upstairs to the girls' room. Before knocking, he warned her quietly. "They might run away. They might ignore you. Please, don't take it personally." Maya offered a soft smile. "Children don't ignore people. They protect their hearts. That just means they are hurting." Adam stared at her, taken aback by her simple, wise words. He slowly opened the door. Inside, Lina and Lara were sitting on the floor, drawing. The moment the door opened, they froze. Their little bodies went stiff, and their hands clutched each other's tightly. They looked up at Maya with wide, frightened eyes. But Maya didn't rush. She didn't step inside. She didn't even try to speak to them directly. Instead, she sat down on the carpeted hallway, right outside their door where they could see her, but without any pressure. She placed her small bag beside her and said in a soft, calm voice, "Hi Lina, hi Lara, I'm Maya. I won't come inside if you don't want me to. I'll just sit here." The twins didn't reply. But they didn't run, either. Maya quietly took out a small notebook and a pencil and started to draw. The girls watched her from the doorway, their eyes peeking over each other's shoulders, following every move of her hand. Maya drew a cute little bunny and held the notebook up so they could see it, but she remained silent. A few minutes later, she drew another bunny, this one holding a tiny heart. She gently slid the notebook a little closer to them on the floor. The girls still didn't move, but their eyes were locked on her drawings. Adam stood behind Maya, silently observing everything. He had hired so many nannies. Each one had tried to force conversation, force closeness, force smiles. But Maya, she offered space. She offered silence. She offered warmth. Without saying a word, Adam felt a subtle shift in the heavy air of the house. After a while, Maya spoke again, her voice incredibly gentle. "It's okay if you don't want to talk to me today. I'll still be here. I'm not going anywhere." Her voice was so warm and reassuring that even Adam felt a sense of calm wash over him. Inside the room, he saw Lina's tight grip on her sister's hand loosen just a little. He noticed Lara's breathing become a bit slower, less shallow. It was a tiny change, but it was progress. Before she left for the day, Maya placed 2 tiny, sparkly smiley face stickers on the floor near the room's entrance and whispered, "For the bravest girls I've ever met." As Adam walked her downstairs, he couldn't help but ask, "How did you do that?" "Do what?" she asked with a small smile. "Make them?" less afraid. Maya looked up at him, her eyes soft and clear. Children don't need perfection, sir. They need patience. Her simple words resonated deep within him, echoing in his mind long after she had left the mansion. Adam had a feeling, a strong feeling, that this time, things were finally going to be different. The next morning started quietly, just like every other day in the vast, silent mansion. But something small, something almost invisible, felt different. Maya arrived early, a tiny paper bag clutched in her hand. She greeted the household staff with a polite nod and walked with a quiet purpose straight toward the twins' room. From the top of the stairs, Adam watched her, a knot of curiosity and skepticism tightening in his stomach. What was her plan for today? When Maya reached the door, she didn't knock. She didn't try the handle or force her way in. Instead, with a gentle movement, she placed the small paper bag on the floor, right in front of the door. Then, she sat down in the exact same spot she had occupied the day before. Inside the room, Lina and Lara peeked out from behind their small bookshelf, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. Maya's voice was soft, a gentle hum in the quiet hallway. Not too loud, not too slow. Good morning, Lina. Good morning, Lara. I brought something for you. The girls didn't reply, but their small bodies leaned just a fraction of an inch closer to the doorway. Maya carefully opened the paper bag and took out 2 mini pancakes. They weren't just any pancakes. Each one had a cheerful smiley face drawn with chocolate syrup, simple, cute, and clearly made with love. She placed one on a small plate and slid it closer to the doorway. Then she did the same with the second one, placing it right beside the first. After that, she did something completely unexpected. She stood up, walked 5 steps back, turned around, and sat down again, with her back facing the girls' room. She wasn't watching them. She wasn't pressuring them. She was giving them space, letting them decide on their own terms. Inside the room, the silence was broken by a tiny whisper. Is she still there? Lina asked, her voice barely a breath. Lara cautiously peeked through the crack in the door. She's not looking at us. Their gaze returned to the pancakes. The colorful smiley faces seemed to be looking right at them. Warm steam was still rising, carrying a sweet, comforting aroma that filled the air. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Lina's stomach made a tiny, betraying rumble. She squeezed Lara's hand tightly and whispered, I'm hungry. Lara, her twin, her other half, nodded slowly. Together, they moved toward the pancakes, crawling like 2 shy kittens, approaching a bowl of milk. They didn't pick up the plates. They just touched the edges gently, as if testing the reality of it all. Maya heard the faint rustle of their movement but didn't turn around. She knew, instinctively, that one wrong move, one glance over her shoulder, could shatter this fragile moment and send them retreating back into their shell. The girls sniffed the pancakes. Lina, the bolder of the two in this moment, leaned forward and licked the chocolate syrup. Lara watched her, then tore off a minuscule piece with her tiny fingers. They didn't eat much, but they tasted it, and in that quiet hallway, that small taste was a monumental victory. Maya, still facing away, smiled quietly to herself. A tiny battle, won. Adam had been watching from the end of the hallway, hidden in the shadows, not close enough for the girls to notice him, but close enough to see everything unfold. He saw the twins inch forward. He saw them touch the plates. And he even saw Lara take that smallest, most hesitant bite. His heart, which had felt like a cold stone in his chest for weeks, felt a flicker of warmth. It was hope. After a few minutes, Maya stood up. As she turned, she glanced at the plates and noticed a tiny bite mark on one of the pancakes. She didn't celebrate loudly. She didn't draw any attention to it. Instead, she leaned toward the door and whispered softly, Thank you, girls. You're very brave. Lina, startled, quickly hid behind her sister, but Lara stayed visible for just 1 extra second, long enough for Maya to give her a tiny, reassuring smile. Later that afternoon, Maya found a piece of paper and some crayons. She drew a small picture of a sun with 2 little stars beside it. She left the drawing at the doorway with another gentle message written underneath. Even the smallest light can make the biggest change. When Maya was out of sight, Lina crept out and picked up the paper. She stared at the simple drawing for a long, long time, her fingers tracing the outline of the sun. Adam approached Maya after lunch, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. You made them try food? He said, the words coming out as if he couldn't quite believe them himself. Maya shook her head gently. They did that themselves, she replied. I only tried to make it a little easier. Adam watched her, really watched her. Every nanny before her had tried a curriculum of teaching, forcing, repeating instructions, and laying down rules. But Maya did none of that. She offered comfort without noise. She gave her presence without pressure. She seemed to understand the silent language of the twins in a way no one else had even come close to. Can I ask you something? Adam said, his voice low. Of course. How do you know what they need? You act like you've been through this before. For a fleeting moment, Maya froze. Her warm smile faded slightly, and a shadow seemed to pass through her eyes, revealing a depth of pain he hadn't seen before. Ayostis, I understand sadness, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Adam saw the flicker of old hurt in her gaze, but knew better than to push. He simply nodded, a new, deeper respect for this quiet, mysterious woman taking root within him. That evening, as Maya gathered her things to leave for the day, the twins peeked out from their door. They watched her walk down the long hallway, her steps soft and even. For the first time, one of them spoke about her after she was gone. It was Lina who whispered, "She didn't leave us alone today." And Lara, her voice equally soft but filled with a new kind of certainty, replied, "And she won't leave tomorrow." Their voices, though quiet, were filled with a tiny light, a tiny seed of trust. The very first, delicate beginning of healing. And Maya, even though she couldn't hear them, felt it too, like a gentle warmth spreading through the quiet air of the mansion. The next few days brought small but beautiful changes to the mansion. Nothing dramatic, just gentle steps forward. Lina and Lara still didn't talk much, but they didn't hide anymore. They would come to the edge of the doorway, watching Maya as she drew, sang, or just sat with them in quiet company. And every single morning, Maya brought them something new. A tiny, colorful toy, a handwritten note with a smiley face, a cute drawing of a little bird, or a short story she had written just for them. The twins collected everything she gave them, carefully placing each item in a special box they kept hidden under their bed. This was a secret treasure trove, a ritual they had never shared with anyone before. One afternoon, Maya went to the garden to water the flowers. She loved the quiet breeze, the soft chirping of the birds, and the earthy smell of fresh leaves. It was her moment of peace. What she didn't know was that two pairs of curious eyes were watching her from the balcony above. The twins saw her lift a small, wilting plant, holding it gently as if she were talking to it. Maya whispered, "Grow well, little one. You're much stronger than you believe." Hearing this, Lina turned to her sister and whispered, "She talks to plants too." A quiet giggle escaped Lara's lips. "I like her," she whispered back. For the first time in a very long time, the sound of the twins' laughter floated through the grand, silent house. Adam heard it from his office. He stood up instantly, his heart skipping a beat. It was a sound he thought he might never hear again, a sound that had vanished the day their mother died. He walked quietly towards the balcony and saw the twins, their faces peeking over the railing, watching Maya in the garden below. But what truly caught his attention was Maya's expression. When she thought no one was looking, her face transformed. Her warm smile became softer, but also incredibly sad. Her eyes glistened, as if she were holding back a flood of tears. Adam was confused. Why did this bright, cheerful young woman look so heartbroken when she was alone? Later that evening, the weather turned. Dark clouds gathered, and a low rumble of thunder rolled across the sky. The sound sent the twins into a state of panic. Storms were their biggest fear. They were a terrible reminder of the night they lost their mother. As the wind howled and a loud crack of thunder shook the windows, Lina and Lara scrambled under their blanket, covering their ears, their small bodies trembling with fear. Adam rushed to go to them, but before he could reach their room, Maya appeared in the hallway. She held a small, flickering lantern, its warm glow casting a soft light on the walls. She knelt beside the bedroom doorway and began to sing. A soft, gentle lullaby filled the air, an emotional, familiar tune. It was the same lullaby their mother used to sing. The twins froze. Under the blanket, Lina slowly lifted a corner. Lara's eyes went wide with disbelief. They knew this song. Their mother sang it to them every single night. But how? How could this nanny, a stranger, know their mother's special song? Driven by a force stronger than their fear, the girls crawled out from under the blanket. They moved toward Maya slowly, cautiously, like two scared kittens drawn to a warm, comforting light. Maya saw them coming and opened her arms, but she didn't speak, letting the music be the bridge between them. The twins sat beside her, one on each side, and their small hands found hers, holding on tightly. Their fingers trembled, but they didn't let go. Standing in the shadows of the hallway, Adam was stunned. He watched the scene, his mind racing. He whispered, his voice barely audible, "Maya, how do you know that lullaby?" Maya stopped singing. Her shoulders stiffened, and she lowered her gaze. For a long moment, there was only the sound of the rain and the twins' soft breathing. Then, she whispered, "Someone very close to me used to sing it." Her voice cracked just slightly, but it was enough. Adam felt a strange heaviness settle in his chest. There was real, profound pain in her words. But the twins didn't care how she knew the song. They just leaned against her, their fear melting away, their breathing finally calm and steady. After the girls had fallen asleep in their beds, Adam walked with Maya to the living room. "That lullaby," he started, his voice quiet. "You sang it exactly like their mother." Maya just stared at her hands, which were clasped in her lap. "I'm sorry if it upset you," she said softly. "No," Adam replied quickly. "You didn't upset me. You calmed him. You helped him. I'm grateful." Maya nodded, but she didn't smile. Adam steadied her face, seeing her in a new light. She wasn't just a kind and gentle nanny, she was also someone who was hurting deeply. "Maya," he asked, his tone softening, "were you close to someone who passed away?" Maya looked away, her gaze shifting to the rain-streaked window. For the first time since she had arrived at the mansion, her guard fell completely. Her eyes filled with tears that she no longer tried to hide. "Everyone loses someone," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "But some losses, they stay with you forever." Adam didn't push her for more. He could feel the wall she put up, a clear sign that she wasn't ready to share her story. But deep inside, a new understanding began to dawn. Maya was hiding something important, something painful, and somehow, it was all connected to his daughters in a way he couldn't yet comprehend. Before leaving for the night, Maya paused at the twins' doorway. Adam watched as she looked in on the sleeping girls and whispered, "Good night, my brave girls." In that moment, watching her stand there, Adam felt it in his gut. Her arrival wasn't a coincidence. He wondered, for the very first time, if Maya had entered their lives for a reason far bigger. The next morning, rain poured heavily over the mansion. Thunder rolled across the sky, and brilliant flashes of lightning illuminated the tall windows. In their bedroom, Lina and Lara shivered, holding each other tightly under a thick blanket. Storms had always terrified them. Storms were a cruel reminder of the night they lost their mother. Adam, their father, heard about the storm while at work and immediately rushed home, his heart pounding with worry. He raced up the stairs to their room, but as he reached the doorway, he stopped. Maya was already there. She was sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, a calm, gentle smile on her face. The twins were still hidden, but Maya's presence was a quiet anchor in the chaotic room. "Don't worry," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rain. "I'll stay with you." Slowly, the girls peeked out from under the edge of their blanket. Maya's voice was soft but steady, like a warm hug in the middle of a storm. She didn't try to force them out. She didn't scold them for hiding or tell them their fear was silly. She simply sat near them, a silent guardian, and began to hum the same soft lullaby from the previous night. The storm raged on, its fury shaking the window panes and making the twins tremble. Lina's eyes, wide with fear, welled up with tears. She whispered, her voice cracking, "Papa, I'm scared." Adam knelt beside the bed, his own heart aching for them. "I'm here, sweetheart. Don't worry," he said gently, placing a hand on the blanket. But he knew his words weren't enough. It was Maya's presence, so calm, so patient, so full of unspoken love, that was slowly chipping away at their wall of fear. She was creating a bubble of safety in the eye of the storm. After a few moments, Maya slowly reached out her hand, palm open. "Come with me," she said softly, her eyes meeting theirs. "I want to show you something." The girls hesitated, retreating slightly under the blanket. Adam, seeing their uncertainty, gave a small nod of encouragement. "It's okay," he mouthed, trusting him, and trusting the quiet strength they felt for Maya. They crawled out from their hiding spot. Their small hands found Maya, and together, the three of them walked down the grand staircase to the dining area, leaving the storm and Adam behind for a moment. In the dining room, a comforting aroma filled the air. Maya had prepared 2 small bowls of warm soup. The smell of fresh vegetables and gentle herbs was inviting, a stark contrast to the cold rain outside. She placed the bowls gently on the table in front of Lina and Lara. "Take 1 small spoon," she whispered, her voice a soothing balm. "Just 1. You can stop anytime you want." The twins stared at the bowls. It had been weeks since they had eaten a proper meal. Their stomachs were painfully empty, but the fear that had taken root in their hearts held them captive. Maya didn't push. She didn't plead or bargain. She simply picked up her own bowl, took a slow, deliberate sip, and continued her soft, comforting humming. Her actions said more than words ever could. "It's safe. I'm with you." Lina, the braver of the two, took a tiny, shaky spoonful of the soup and brought it to her lips. She froze for a second, then swallowed. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in surprise. The warmth spread through her, a gentle wave of comfort. Lara, watching her sister's reaction, slowly copied the motion. She took a small spoonful, her hand trembling slightly, and ate. Then another. Together, they took small, careful bites, their movements becoming less hesitant with each spoonful. Adam stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. Tears welled in his eyes and streamed down his face, silent and unnoticed. For the first time in 2 long, agonizing weeks, his daughters were eating. He felt a profound sense of relief, a weight lifting from his soul that had been crushing him for months. After a few minutes, the tension in the room had completely melted away. The twins were eating more confidently now, the clinking of their spoons, a beautiful, hopeful sound. They even let out quiet giggles when Maya, in an attempt to make them smile, made a funny face while sipping her own soup. It was a sound Adam hadn't heard in what felt like a lifetime. "See?" Maya said softly, a warm smile gracing her lips. "Your hearts were ready. You just needed a little courage to take the first step." The girls looked up at her and smiled back. It wasn't a fleeting, polite smile. It was the first genuine, heartfelt smile Adam had seen on their faces in weeks. A smile full of trust, hope, and a newfound warmth for the woman sitting with them. Adam walked closer, his steps quiet on the polished floor, and knelt beside them. He looked at Maya, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered, his gratitude overwhelming him. You saved him." Maya gently shook her head, her gaze still on the girls. "They saved themselves," she replied softly. "I only helped a little." Then, in a moment that would be etched in Adam's memory forever, the girls looked at her and whispered, almost in perfect unison, "Thank you, Maya." At their words, Maya's own eyes filled with tears. For the first time since arriving at the imposing mansion, she felt a deep, genuine happiness. It wasn't just because the girls had finally eaten, it was because she had reached their hearts, found a small crack in their wall of grief, and let a little light shine through. Later that evening, the storm had passed, leaving behind a quiet, clean world. Adam stood by the doorway of the twins' bedroom, watching Maya tuck them into bed. As she turned to leave, the twins waved at her from their pillows. "You're our friend," Lina whispered, her voice sleepy but clear. "And our favorite person," Lara added, a small smile on her face. Adam's heart swelled with a feeling so powerful it almost took his breath away. In that moment, he realized something profound. Maya wasn't just a nanny hired to look after his children. She was a healer, a light in their shared darkness. She was the bridge connecting his daughters and himself back to the world. And deep inside, as he watched her walk down the hallway, Adam felt a spark ignite within him, something he hadn't felt in a very long time. A spark of overwhelming gratitude. And maybe, just maybe, something more. The storm had passed, and it felt like the mansion itself could finally breathe again. Out in the garden, the twins' quiet laughter echoed, a sound Adam hadn't heard in months. They darted between the rose bushes, chasing butterflies and picking the last of the rain-kissed flowers. It was a sound that made his heart both ache and smile. Maya followed them, a small basket of snacks swinging from her arm. She didn't rush them or call them over. She simply walked a few paces behind, a soft smile on her face, watching their tiny hands reach for petals and their little feet splash through the wet grass. Adam stood at the garden doorway, a silent observer. There was something about Maya that was different, something he couldn't quite place. Her patience, her kindness, her almost intuitive understanding of the girls. It was extraordinary. He found himself watching her more than he was watching his own daughters. The twins suddenly came running to Maya, their hands full of wildflowers, their faces alight with joy. Lina, the more reserved of the two, whispered, "Maya, can we keep this flower forever?" Maya smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners, and gently tucked the small, purple bloom into her pocket. "Of course, little one. It will be our special flower." At that, Lara, bolder and more expressive, wrapped her arms tightly around Maya's leg. "We love you," she declared, her voice bubbling with excitement. Adam watched from the doorway, his heart swelling. This was the first time he had seen his daughters so genuinely happy since their world had been turned upside down. He realized then that the trust and love the twins felt for Maya wasn't just about her. It was a reflection of the safety and warmth they were finally feeling in their home again. And as he stood there, another realization dawned on him, one that was both startling and undeniable. He was starting to feel something for Maya too. Later that evening, after the girls were asleep, Adam sat in the grand living room. A stack of files spread across the mahogany coffee table. The quiet hum of the house was a familiar companion. The soft click of the door opening barely registered until Maya quietly entered, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. "Sir, you've been working too hard," she said softly, placing the delicate porcelain cup beside his elbow. Adam looked up, and for a fleeting second, his heart seemed to skip a beat. There was a softness in her voice, a genuine warmth in her eyes that he couldn't ignore. "Thank you, Maya," he said, his own voice quieter than he intended. "I don't know what I would do without you." A faint blush rose on Maya's cheeks, and she looked down, her gaze falling to the intricate pattern of the rug. "You're welcome, sir. I just want the girls to be happy." Adam studied her for a long moment, noticing how her dark eyes sparkled in the soft glow of the lamplight, how her small, shy smile seemed to reach him in a way he didn't understand. A comfortable silence settled between them, a quiet bubble in the vast room, just the two of them. Then, The pitter-patter of small feet on the staircase broke the spell. "Papa, Maya, look at the drawing we made," Lina shouted, holding up a piece of paper filled with colorful scribbles. Maya's attention shifted immediately to the girls, her face breaking into a wide, beautiful smile. But Adam stayed quiet for a moment longer, his eyes still on her, a smile of his own forming. He liked the way she cared for the twins. And maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to care for her, too. Over the next few days, that feeling only grew. The bond between Maya and the twins solidified into something beautiful and strong. Mornings were filled with laughter over syrupy pancakes. Afternoons were for adventures in the garden. Evenings were for bedtime stories, with the twins snuggled close, leaning their heads on Maya's shoulder as she read in a calm, soothing voice. One rainy afternoon, they even played dress-up, Maya patiently letting them braid her long hair with colorful ribbons, her own giggles mixing with theirs. Adam often found himself pausing in the hallway, just listening. Her presence had become so natural, so integral to the rhythm of their lives. It wasn't just her job anymore. It was her heart, her patience, her very soul that she poured into his family. And he couldn't help but feel that strange, unfamiliar flutter in his chest whenever she turned and her smile caught his. A feeling he hadn't let himself feel in years. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. One night, after Maya had tucked the twins in and kissed their foreheads, Adam walked her to the front door. The house was finally still, wrapped in the quiet of the late evening. "Thank you for everything," he whispered, the words feeling inadequate. Maya turned her hand on the doorknob and offered him that soft smile that always seemed to calm the storm inside him. "It's my pleasure, sir. The girls are so brave, and you've been a wonderful father through it all." They stood there for a moment, sharing a quiet understanding that didn't need words. It was a moment full of warmth, a moment that neither of them wanted to end. Adam took a half step back, his heart pounding a steady rhythm against his ribs. He knew one thing with absolute clarity. Maya wasn't just a nanny anymore. She had woven herself into the fabric of their lives, become a part of their hearts, and perhaps a part of his, too. As Maya slipped out into the cool night air, Adam stood at the doorway, watching her go. He whispered softly to the empty hall, "She's special, more than anyone I've ever met." And somewhere deep inside, in a part of his heart he thought had closed off forever, he felt the undeniable beginnings of something new. Something wonderful and hopeful, something he wasn't quite ready to name. Not yet. That night, the mansion was finally still. The storm had passed, leaving the garden to glisten under the soft, silvery glow of the moon. Upstairs, Lina and Lara were asleep in their beds, their small bodies nestled under thick, cozy blankets. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, their breathing was calm, even, and peaceful. Downstairs, Adam sat alone in the quiet of the living room, his gaze fixed on the empty hallway where Maya had just walked past. A soft, gentle smile touched his lips. The twins, his girls, were finally happy again. He'd heard them laugh today, truly laugh, a sound he thought he might never hear again. They ate their dinner without a fuss, and they trusted someone new. And Maya had made all of it possible. The next morning, Adam was woken not by an alarm, but by the sweet, melodic sound of soft laughter drifting from the twins' room. Curious, he tiptoed to their door and peeked inside. What he saw made his heart swell with a feeling so profound, it almost brought him to his knees. Lina and Lara were sitting on the plush rug, their heads bent together in concentration, drawing a picture. It wasn't just a random doodle of flowers or animals. It was a family portrait. They had drawn themselves, and they had drawn him. But right there, in the very center, holding both of their hands, stood Maya. A huge, bright sun shone down on them from the top of the page, and the sky was filled with little red hearts. Lina, sensing his presence, looked up, her eyes wide and shining. "Papa," she said, her voice clear and certain. "Maya is our best friend. She makes us happy." Lara nodded her head. So fast her pigtails bounced, "And she stays with us forever, right?" Right. Adam's throat tightened. He knelt beside them, his own eyes becoming misty. "You're right," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "She's very, very special." Later that morning, when Maya arrived for the day, the twins didn't hesitate. They didn't hide behind Adam's legs or peek from behind the door. They ran straight to her, wrapping their arms around her legs in a tight, trusting hug. For the first time, they showed no fear. For the first time, they trusted someone outside their tiny circle completely. For the first time since their world had shattered, they were truly, undeniably happy again. And watching them, Adam felt a wave of gratitude so powerful it was almost overwhelming. That evening, after the twins were tucked into bed, their dreams filled with sunshine and laughter, Adam found Maya sitting in the garden. She was on the old stone bench, her face tilted up towards the moon. She looked serene, almost ethereal in the pale light. but as he drew closer, he saw a shadow of sadness lingering in her eyes. He approached quietly, not wanting to startle her. "You did something amazing for them?" he said softly, his voice barely disturbing the quiet of the night. "They're a hapa. They're happy because of you." Maya offered a faint, gentle smile, her gaze still on the stars. "They've always been brave," she replied. "I just helped them see it for themselves." Adam stood there for a moment, the scent of rain-soaked earth filling the air. He hesitated, a question burning on his tongue, a question he had been holding back for days. Finally, he found the courage to ask. "Maya, last week, when you were putting them to bed, you sang a lullaby. How did you know it?" That was their mother's song." The air grew heavy. Maya's faint smile vanished. Her eyes fell from the sky, and she stared down at her hands, now clasped tightly in her lap. A long moment of silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant chirp of a cricket. "Then," she whispered, her voice so soft he had to lean in to hear it. I knew your wife. A long time ago." Adam froze. The world seemed to stop spinning. His mind raced, trying to connect the pieces that were suddenly scattered before him. "How? What do you mean? How did you know her?" He tried to keep his voice steady, but a tremor of shock ran through it. Maya took a deep, shaky breath. "I can't explain everything right now. It's complicated. But please believe me, I wanted to help the girls. More than anything, I wanted to make sure they feel safe and loved again. That's all that matters to me." Adam looked at her, at the genuine pain and sincerity in her expression. A storm of confusion, curiosity, and a strange sense of admiration brewed within him. He nodded slowly, accepting her words for now. He realized there was so much more to Maya than he had ever imagined. Her kindness, her endless patience, her quiet sadness. It was all connected somehow, woven into the fabric of his family's past. Later that night, Adam walked to the twins' room, the floorboards creaking softly under his feet. He pushed the door open and watched them sleep, their faces angelic in the dim light from the hallway. He leaned over and kissed each of their foreheads. "Good night, my brave girls," he whispered into the stillness, as if hearing him in their sleep. Lina and Lara both smiled. "Good night, Papa," Lina murmured, and then Lara added, "Good night, Maya." Adam's heart skipped a beat. He gently pulled the door closed, his gaze falling on Maya, who was standing at the end of the hallway, watching him. For a brief, charged moment, their eyes met across the distance. In that shared glance, there was an unspoken understanding, a warmth that had nothing to do with the temperature of the house, and, maybe, just maybe, the fragile beginning of something new. Something like hope. Something like love. As he walked back towards the living room, Adam knew one thing with absolute clarity. Maya hadn't just come to look after his children. She had changed their lives. She had taken the broken pieces of their hearts, and, with gentle hands and a quiet strength, she had begun to heal them. She had opened a door he thought was locked forever. Door to trust, to happiness, and to a future that suddenly seemed a little less lonely. The house was still quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with peace. And for the first time in a very long time, Adam felt like he was finally home. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. See you next time.